In the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Pacific Northwest's snowy mountain range, the cold was a living force, biting through layers of fabric with ruthless efficiency. Navy SEAL Jake Turner maneuvered cautiously through the dense forest. The crunch of snow beneath his boots, the only sound breaking the eerie silence. His breath formed fleeting clouds in the frigid air, mingling with the faint scent of pine and ice. Beside him, Titan, his trusted canine partner, moved with an instinctual grace, nose to the ground, alert to every scent and sound. The bond between man and dog was unspoken but unwavering, forged through countless missions in unforgiving terrain. Jake's mission that morning had been routine, patrolling the perimeter of a remote military training zone nestled deep within the mountains. The area was vast and isolated, where the boundary between civilization and wilderness blurred beneath towering evergreens and snow-laden cliffs. The sun was a pale disk behind rolling clouds, casting a muted light over a landscape that seemed frozen in time. Visibility was limited, the sky threatening more snow, and the temperature hovered well below freezing. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. As they rounded a steep ridge, Titan suddenly halted, ears pricked and body tense. Jake stopped too, scanning the area with sharp, trained eyes. The dog's sudden alertness was unusual in this quiet stretch, and Jake's hand instinctively moved to the grip of his sidearm. Titan's nose twitched, catching a scent that did not belong to this wilderness. Moving cautiously toward the source, Jake's heart quickened with a mixture of anticipation and unease. There, partially buried beneath a thin veil of freshly fallen snow and tangled branches, lay a small, fragile bundle. Jake's breath hitched as he knelt down, the cold biting through his gloves as he carefully brushed away the snow. The bundle was wrapped in a thin, threadbare blanket, shivering softly despite the cold. As he gently unfolded the fabric, the tiny face of a newborn baby came into view. Eyes squeezed shut, mouth crying out in fragile desperation. The scene was surreal. In the middle of this remote, frozen wilderness, a life so delicate and vulnerable was left exposed to the merciless cold. Jake's military training surged forward, overriding any shock or confusion. His instincts took over, guiding his hands as he lifted the infant close to his chest, using his own body heat to shield the child from the biting wind. Titan circled behind Jake, growling low but protective, sensing the fragile presence they now carried. The baby's cries were weak but persistent, a haunting sound swallowed by the vast silence of the forest. Jake's mind raced. How had this child come to be here? Was there danger nearby? Was the baby's abductor still lurking in the shadows of the trees? The cold was relentless, a sharp contrast to the warmth Jake now tried to provide. His breath fogged the air as he scanned the horizon, calculating their next move. The nearest help was miles away, and the rugged terrain offered no easy path. Yet, there was no hesitation. The baby's survival depended on swift action, and Jake's resolve hardened like the ice beneath his boots. He pulled off his insulated jacket, wrapping it around the infant with careful precision, his fingers trembling in the cold. Titan sat close, ears flicking toward every noise, muscles coiled for action. The mountain seemed to hold its breath, the natural world momentarily stilled in the face of this fragile new life. Jake's radio crackled to life, a lifeline in the vast silence. His voice was steady, professional, yet laced with urgency as he relayed the discovery to base command. "This is Turner. I've located a newborn, abandoned in Sector 7. Immediate medical assistance required. Coordinates incoming." The operator's voice was calm but quick to respond, dispatching search and rescue teams while advising caution. As Jake awaited confirmation, he scanned the tree line again, eyes searching for any sign of movement. The wind picked up, howling through the branches and carrying the distant echo of the baby's cries. The fragile bundle in his arms stirred, a faint whimper breaking through the cold air. His heart clenched, every second feeling like an eternity. The isolation of the mountain was stark. The snow stretched endlessly in every direction, broken only by the dark silhouettes of towering trees and jagged rocks. The sky above was a steely gray, the sun's weak rays unable to pierce the thick cloud cover. It was a place where survival was a daily battle. And yet here, in this frozen wasteland, life had stubbornly taken root in the form of this tiny, shivering infant. Jake adjusted his grip, whispering soothing words he wasn't sure the baby could hear, but they steadied him nonetheless. "You're safe now. We're gonna get you warm." The words were a promise, an unspoken vow forged in the cold wilderness. Titan's steady presence at his side was a reminder that they were not alone, even in this desolate place. Minutes passed with agonizing slowness before the distant sound of rotor blades sliced through the silence. The search and rescue helicopter was on its way, cutting a path through the heavy sky toward Jake's coordinates. Relief washed over him, tempered by the urgency to keep the baby alive until help arrived. He scanned the surroundings once more, noting the tracks in the snow, footprints that did not belong to him or Titan. Someone had been here recently, someone who had left this child behind. The thought sent a chill deeper than the cold, igniting a fierce determination within Jake. Whoever had abandoned this baby had committed a grave act, and Jake knew his mission was far from over. As the helicopter's thrum grew louder, Jake settled the infant more securely against his chest, shielding the baby from the biting wind. Titan sat obediently, eyes fixed on the approaching rescue team. The mountain, indifferent to human drama, continued its silent vigil. But for a brief moment, hope flickered in the frozen wilderness. Jake's mind raced ahead, already planning the next steps. Medical care for the baby, an investigation into the circumstances that brought this child to such a perilous place, and the search for answers that would reveal who had left this innocent life to the mercy of the snow. But for now, the immediate danger was past. The baby was safe in Jake's arms, the harsh mountain air filled with the promise of rescue. And in that fragile moment, amid the biting cold and endless white, a lifeline had been thrown, a beacon of hope in the heart of the wilderness. The helicopter's rotor blades stirred the heavy air as it descended toward the snow-covered clearing, carving through the dense clouds that hung low over the Pacific Northwest mountains. Jake Turner remained crouched, his breath steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Cradled against his chest was the newborn, swathed in layers of warmth, fragile but alive. Titan sat alert beside him, ears pricked and eyes scanning the forest's edge, a silent sentinel in the cold wilderness. The mountains around them were a study in contrasts, a breathtaking yet unforgiving landscape where nature's beauty was matched only by its peril. Towering evergreens stood dusted with heavy snow, their branches bowing beneath the weight. Jagged cliffs loomed in the distance, their gray faces carved by centuries of ice and wind. The air was sharp and crisp, each inhalation a reminder of the raw environment Jake and Titan had entered. Jake's mind shifted briefly from the immediate concern of the baby's welfare to the greater story the mountains whispered. This remote region was known for its isolation, a place where few dared to tread unless necessity demanded it. The wilderness was vast, stretching for miles with only narrow trails and frozen rivers to mark the way. It was a place where survival required skill, endurance, and respect for the elements. Jake had spent years navigating this terrain. Training missions, survival exercises, and covert operations had all tested his limits here. But today, the stakes were different. The baby in his arms was a stark reminder of vulnerability amid the mountain's indifferent majesty. It was a fragile life hanging in the balance, dependent on the very skills Jake had honed through years of service. As the rescue team touched down, a group of medics rushed forward, their gear designed for cold weather emergencies. The team moved efficiently, voices muffled by insulated hoods and masks, their eyes focused on the infant wrapped tightly against Jake's chest. The lead medic, a woman with a calm but determined demeanor, gently took the baby from Jake's arms, immediately assessing the newborn's condition. Jake stepped back, watching as they worked quickly to warm the child, their portable heaters and thermal blankets creating a small bubble of heat in the frozen clearing. The baby's cries softened, replaced by quiet whimpers, as the medics stabilized the infant's body temperature. The urgency of the situation was clear in their practiced movements, every second critical in this harsh environment. Titan remained at Jake's side, occasionally glancing up at the medic team, but never straying from his handler. His instincts told him this was more than just a rescue. It was a mission that carried weight far beyond the snow and trees. The medics loaded the baby into a specialized incubator designed for airlift, ensuring warmth and safety during transport to the nearest hospital. Jake climbed into the helicopter alongside them, his gaze lingering on the mountains as the blades lifted them away from the clearing and into the gray skies above. Inside the aircraft, the atmosphere was tense but focused. The hum of the engines blended with the quiet murmurs of the medical team as they monitored the infant's vitals. Jake sat near the incubator, his thoughts drifting to the baby's journey. How had such a tiny life ended up abandoned in the wilderness? Outside the window, the landscape unfolded in a patchwork of white and dark green. Rivers frozen solid and peaks rising like sentinels against the overcast sky. The isolation of the region was striking, a world untouched by the chaos of civilization, yet now marked by a mystery that demanded answers. Jake's own background was a tapestry of discipline, resilience, and experience forged in the crucible of military service. As a Navy SEAL, he had been trained to face danger head-on, to protect and preserve life under the most extreme conditions. But this mission was different. There was no enemy out there, only the unforgiving wilderness and a vulnerable child who needed more than survival skills. The baby needed compassion, care, and protection. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, updating them on their ETA to the regional hospital. Jake nodded, his mind already preparing for what would come next. Coordinating with authorities, initiating a search for the baby's family, and uncovering the circumstances that had brought this infant to such a perilous place. Back on the ground, news of the rescue began to ripple through the nearby communities nestled in the foothills of the mountains. These small towns, often overlooked and isolated themselves, were no strangers to the harsh realities of their environment. Winters were long and brutal, and each resident understood the delicate balance between man and nature. The baby's discovery sparked a wave of concern and curiosity. Who had left the child exposed to the elements? Was this an act of desperation, abandonment, or something more sinister? Local authorities, already briefed by Jake during the radio communication, mobilized to assist with the investigation and provide support for the infant's care. Meanwhile, Jake's connection to the case deepened. His role was no longer just that of rescuer, but of guardian, protector, and witness to a story that was unfolding against the backdrop of towering pines and endless snow. The mountains, silent and majestic, held their secrets tightly, but Jake was determined to unravel them. Titan, sensing the shift in purpose, remained close, his presence a constant source of strength. The dog's keen senses and unwavering loyalty were invaluable assets, especially in a region where every step could lead to answers or danger. As the helicopter touched down at the hospital, a team of pediatric specialists awaited, ready to take over the delicate care of the newborn. Jake stayed by the incubator, watching as the baby was transferred to a controlled environment, warmth and safety finally assured. The medical staff expressed cautious optimism, noting the infant's resilience despite the ordeal. Outside the sterile hospital walls, the world continued. Snowflakes drifting softly against the glass, a reminder of the wilderness just beyond. For Jake, the rescue was only the beginning. The baby's survival was a triumph against the odds, but the deeper questions lingered. Who was this child? Why had they been left alone in the mountains? And what story would emerge from the silence of the snow? In the quiet moments that followed, Jake found himself reflecting on the fragile balance between strength and vulnerability. The mountains had tested him in countless ways, but this mission touched something deeper: the raw, unyielding power of human life and the lengths one would go to protect it. The remote, snow-covered peaks loomed beyond the hospital windows, indifferent yet awe-inspiring. They bore witness to the journey of a Navy SEAL and his canine partner, who had found a tiny life in the heart of their frozen domain. And though the mystery was far from solved, the spark of hope had been ignited. Jake knew the road ahead would be challenging. The wilderness was vast and secrets buried beneath layers of ice and time. But with Titan by his side and the memory of that fragile newborn etched in his heart, he was ready to face whatever came next. For now, the mountains held their breath. The snow whispered of resilience, and a story of survival was just beginning to unfold beneath the cold, gray sky. The sterile hum of the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit was a stark contrast to the biting cold and endless white of the mountains Jake Turner had just left behind. The tiny infant lay swaddled in a radiant incubator, soft beeping machines marking the fragile rhythm of life. Jake stood quietly nearby, his arms crossed, eyes fixed on the small bundle whose survival now depended on every careful measure of warmth and care the hospital could provide. Yet, as much as the sterile environment offered safety, it also underscored the urgency of the situation. The baby's delicate condition demanded immediate and continuous attention. Hypothermia had taken its toll during those harsh hours in the wilderness, and every moment was a race against the lingering effects of exposure. The medical team moved with practiced precision, their voices low but purposeful, a symphony of hope amid tension. Jake's military training had ingrained in him a calm under pressure, but the sight of the newborn's fragile form stirred a different kind of resolve. This was no battlefield, yet here he was, fighting to protect a life that had been thrust into peril without warning or explanation. The baby's survival was no accident. It was a testament to resilience and the quiet strength that sometimes emerged in the most unlikely circumstances. Outside the hospital's glass walls, the Pacific Northwest was cloaked in a wintry quiet, snowflakes drifting lazily in the shifting light. The wilderness that had been the backdrop to the rescue now seemed a world away, yet its shadow loomed over every decision made within these walls. The baby's ordeal was a stark reminder of nature's indifferent power, and Jake knew time was a critical factor. As the medical team worked, Jake's thoughts raced ahead. He had initiated contact with local authorities and child protective services, But the remote location and weather conditions meant that any follow-up would be slow and complicated. The baby's origin was a mystery. No identification, no clues beyond the thin blanket that had offered scant protection against the cold. The possibility that the infant had been abandoned deliberately gnawed at Jake's conscience. Who could leave a newborn in such a merciless environment? Was this an act born of desperation, fear, or something darker? The questions pressed heavily on him, heightening the urgency to unravel the story behind the child's arrival in the snow. Meanwhile, Titan's keen senses were already attuned to the next phase of their mission. Back at the clearing, the canine partner had been instrumental in tracking faint footprints and disturbed snow that suggested someone else had recently passed through the area. The dog's alert posture and intense gaze had signaled that the threat, or the person responsible, might still be nearby, hidden within the dense forest or the craggy slopes. Jake had no illusions about the challenges ahead. The mountain's vastness was both a shield and a barrier, concealing secrets beneath its frozen crust. But his resolve was unshaken. His experience in search and rescue, combined with Titan's unparalleled tracking abilities, gave them the best chance of uncovering the truth. Communication lines buzzed intermittently as Jake coordinated with local search teams and law enforcement. The terrain was treacherous, and weather forecasts warned of incoming storms that threatened to hamper efforts. Yet, the urgency of finding the infant's family, or whoever had abandoned the child, propelled them forward. Within the hospital, the baby's condition stabilized slowly, but remained precarious. Nurses monitored vital signs with unwavering attention, administering treatments to counter the effects of cold exposure and dehydration. Each minute passed was a victory, yet the fragility of life was a constant reminder of the stakes. Jake found himself drawn into conversations with the medical staff, learning about the infant's vital signs and potential risks. The baby's resilience was remarkable, but the road to recovery was uncertain. The doctors emphasized the need for warmth, nourishment, and protection from infection, all critical in these early hours. Amid the clinical environment, Jake's thoughts drifted to the community beyond the hospital walls. Small mountain towns nestled in valleys, and along rivers were already abuzz with news of the rescue. Rumors and speculation swirled among residents, some offering prayers, others questioning how such a tragedy could unfold in their own backyard. The local sheriff's office had launched an official investigation, canvassing the area for witnesses and any evidence that might shed light on the baby's origins. Volunteers from nearby communities organized search parties, scouring trails and abandoned cabins, hoping to find a clue or a sign of those responsible. Despite the progress, the mountain's silence remained unbroken. The snow covered footprints quickly, and the forest's shadows concealed more than they revealed. Jake and Titan prepared to return to the field, knowing that time was running thin and the weather was turning colder. Before leaving the hospital, Jake knelt beside the incubator, his voice barely a whisper. "We're going to find you. You're not alone." The words felt both like a vow and a prayer, a promise to the fragile life that had found its way into his world. Outside, the sky had darkened, heavy clouds rolling in with the promise of a fresh snowfall. The wind whispered through the towering pines, carrying with it the weight of untold stories and hidden dangers. Jake zipped up his jacket, adjusted Titan's harness, and stepped back into the cold embrace of the wilderness. The snow had begun to fall again, soft flakes drifting like fragile memories upon the frozen ground. Each step forward was measured, deliberate, every footprint a trace in the search for answers. Titan's nose worked tirelessly, following scents lost to most but alive to the dog's keen senses. The isolation of the mountains pressed in around them, but Jake's focus remained unyielding. The baby's survival was a beacon guiding them through the cold and the silence. Every second counted, every clue a thread in the unraveling tapestry of this mysterious rescue. As they moved deeper into the snow-laden forest, Jake's mind cataloged every detail: the broken branches, the faint tracks, the subtle disturbances in the otherwise pristine snow. Each was a signpost, a whisper from the wilderness that might lead to the truth. The harsh beauty of the Pacific Northwest was both a sanctuary and a challenge, its vastness a reminder of humanity's smallness against nature's vast canvas. Yet, amidst the snow and shadow, a story of life and survival was unfolding, one that Jake Turner and Titan were determined to write with courage, perseverance, and hope. The mountain called to them, silent and majestic, its secrets buried beneath layers of ice and snow. But Jake's resolve burned bright, a steady flame against the cold. For the newborn found in the snow, for the answers yet to be uncovered, the mission continued. The evening sky over the Pacific Northwest mountains had deepened into a muted gray, the first heavy flakes of a fresh snowstorm drifting down to cloak the rugged terrain in silence. Navy SEAL Jake Turner adjusted his gear beneath the weight of his insulated jacket, his breath forming quick, steady puffs in the frigid air. Beside him, Titan, muscular, alert, and unyielding, sniffed the wind, his keen nose attuned to the faintest trace of a scent lost beneath the snow's relentless fall. They stood at the edge of a narrow, winding trail that disappeared into the dense forest, the trees thick with snow and shadow. The remote location was unforgiving, at a vast wilderness where help was measured in hours or days, not minutes. Yet, Jake's resolve was unwavering. The newborn baby they had found earlier that day was safe now, but the mystery of how the infant had come to be abandoned in this frozen expanse pressed heavily on him. Answers lay somewhere out there, hidden in the snow and silence. Jake keyed his radio, his voice low but urgent. "Base, this is Turner. We're moving into Sector Delta for a closer sweep. Weather's closing in, but Titan's tracking is strong. Requesting any updates on search and rescue support." The crackling response was distant but reassuring. Local teams were mobilizing, though the terrain and incoming storm would slow their approach. The remote mountain community, a scattering of small towns and logging camps nestled in valleys, had awakened to the news of the infant's discovery with a mixture of shock and concern. Word spread quickly through radio chatter and phone calls, the story capturing the attention of search and rescue units, law enforcement, and volunteers alike. Despite the isolation, the connections between residents were tight-knit, and the shared sense of responsibility was palpable. Jake knew that in this kind of wilderness, time was a merciless adversary. The baby's survival had been a narrow escape from the elements, but the trail they now followed might lead to those responsible for abandoning such a fragile life. Titan's paws moved silently over the powdery snow. Nostrils flared, weaving a path through the trees that Jake followed with practiced ease. The forest here was dense, the towering evergreens heavy with snow that muffled sound and distorted light. Visibility was limited, the thick branches blotting out what little daylight remained. The wind had picked up, swirling snow in eddies around their boots, and the temperature had dropped sharply. Each step required caution. The terrain was uneven, littered with hidden rocks and frozen roots that could betray even the most careful hiker. Despite the harsh conditions, Jake's military training took over. His senses sharpened, every movement deliberate, every breath measured. He scanned the surroundings constantly for signs: broken branches, disturbed snow, footprints. that might offer a clue. Titan's nose led them steadily onward, a silent guide through the white wilderness. Radio chatter continued in bursts, voices exchanging coordinates, weather updates, and search grid adjustments. The local search and rescue teams were coordinating to cover the expansive area, but Jake knew the mountain's vastness would challenge even the most determined efforts. The storm threatened to erase the faintest traces, turning yesterday's footprints into today's blank canvas. Back at the hospital, the newborn remained under close observation. Medical staff reported gradual improvements, warming steadily, feeding well, and responding positively to care. The fragility that had marked the baby's first hours was giving way to a tentative strength, a testament to resilience in the face of harsh beginnings. But the mystery of the child's identity and origin remained unanswered, a puzzle Jake was determined to solve. As the team moved deeper into the forest, Jake's mind cycled through scenarios. Was this an act of desperation? Had the infant's parents been forced to abandon their child due to circumstances beyond their control? Or was there a darker story hidden beneath the snow and shadow? The unknown pressed on him, fueling a determination to find the truth. Titan stopped abruptly, ears erect and tail stiff. Jake froze, following the dog's gaze toward a faint disturbance in the snow, a set of partial footprints, partially obscured but distinct enough to mark a path. The tracks veered off the main trail, leading toward a thicket of dense underbrush. Jake's pulse quickened as he knelt to examine the prints. They were fresh, likely made within the last 24 hours. "Good boy, Titan," Jake whispered, voice steady. He signaled for the team to proceed cautiously, every sense alert. The footprints suggested someone had passed through here recently, possibly the person or people responsible for the infant's abandonment. The forest seemed to close in around them as they followed the trail. Snow continued to fall in thick flakes, muffling their footsteps and reducing visibility. The cold bit deeper now, seeping through layers of clothing. But Jake pushed forward, driven by a mix of duty and urgency. After 20 minutes, the footprints ended near a small clearing, where the remnants of a makeshift campfire lay cold beneath a scattering of snow. Charred wood and melted snow suggested someone had stayed here recently, but the fire had gone out hours ago. Nearby, a tattered piece of fabric caught on a branch. A fragment of cloth that bore traces of the same threadbare material wrapped around the infant. Jake's heart pounded as he collected the piece carefully, evidence that connected this spot to the baby's abandonment. The camp was crude, hastily constructed, and suggested a desperate attempt to shelter against the elements. With the storm intensifying, Jake keyed his radio. "Base, we've located a potential campsite near Sector Delta. Evidence consistent with infant's blanket fabric. Requesting immediate backup and forensic team to process the site." The response was swift, though tempered by the worsening weather. Backup was en route, but would be delayed. As the wind howled through the trees, Jake took a moment to scan the horizon. The snow swirled in blinding curtains, the forest shifting into a monochrome expanse. The mountain was relentless, indifferent to their mission, yet Jake felt a fierce resolve burn within him. Titan sat by his side, eyes bright and alert against the storm. The dog's presence was a steady anchor in the chaos, a reminder that even in the bleakest conditions, there was hope. Jake wrapped his hands around the small piece of fabric, a tangible link to the mystery they were unraveling. The baby's survival was a beacon, but the path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty. Whoever had left this child in the wilderness was still out there, their story waiting to be told. The radio crackled again, a voice confirming the arrival of additional search teams and the promise of forensic specialists. Relief mingled with urgency as Jake prepared to secure the site, careful not to disturb any further evidence. The storm deepened, snow piling higher, but the mission pressed on. Every footprint, every trace, was a step closer to uncovering the truth behind the abandoned infant in the heart of the Pacific Northwest Mountains. In the midst of the swirling snow and towering pines, Jake Turner and Titan stood resolute, a team bound by duty, courage, and the relentless pursuit of hope amid the cold and silence. The biting chill of a late winter afternoon settled over the mountain town of Cedar Falls, a small community nestled among snow-dusted pines and ice-crusted rooftops. Inside a cozy local cafe, an unassuming bystander named Emma Lawson sat nursing a steaming cup of coffee, her fingers wrapped around the warmth as she scrolled through her phone. The day's news had been grim. A newborn found abandoned in the remote wilderness. But Emma's attention was drawn to a live video streaming from just outside town. The footage, shaky but vivid, showed Navy SEAL Jake Turner crouched in the snow, cradling the tiny infant wrapped in a thin blanket. Titan, his loyal canine partner, stood guard nearby, eyes sharp and vigilant. The surrounding landscape was a stark white canvas of snow and towering evergreens, the frigid wind whipping through the trees as Jake called for help over his radio. Emma's breath caught as the scene unfolded, Jake's calm determination, the baby's fragile cries piercing the cold air, and Titan's protective stance. The raw humanity of the moment was palpable, a powerful contrast to the harsh environment. Without hesitation, she tapped the screen and began sharing the video across her social media channels, the story resonating deeply with viewers near and far. Within hours, the video went viral. Thousands of viewers were captivated by the dramatic rescue, the courage displayed in the face of nature's unforgiving grip. Comments flooded in, expressing hope, admiration, and a collective desire to see the infant safe and the mystery resolved. Local news outlets picked up the story, broadcasting the footage with updates on the baby's condition and the ongoing search for answers. Back at the hospital, Jake monitored the growing media storm with a mixture of relief and apprehension. The public's outpouring of support was encouraging, yet he remained focused on the immediate task, ensuring the newborn's survival and aiding the investigation into the child's origins. The viral video had brought attention and resources, but it also meant the stakes were higher, the scrutiny more intense. Meanwhile, in Cedar Falls and surrounding towns, the community buzzed with renewed energy. Volunteers offered to assist search and rescue efforts, local businesses organized fundraisers, and neighbors checked in on one another, united by a shared sense of purpose sparked by the story's viral reach. Emma found herself at the center of a growing network, coordinating online efforts and sharing real-time updates as authorities worked tirelessly in the snowbound wilderness. The digital footprint of the rescue extended beyond the town's borders, drawing attention from advocacy groups, law enforcement agencies, and concerned citizens nationwide. The baby's plight became a symbol of resilience and the urgent need for vigilance in protecting vulnerable lives. Social media campaigns urged people to stay alert for signs of other children in danger, amplifying the rescue's impact far beyond the immediate crisis. Jake received messages of support from former comrades, friends, and strangers alike. The video had humanized the mission, showing not just a soldier and his dog, but a protector fighting to save a life against overwhelming odds. Yet, despite the swell of goodwill, Jake remained guarded. The viral nature of the footage meant that misinformation and speculation began to circulate, threatening to complicate the delicate investigation underway. In the midst of the online storm, the local sheriff's office faced mounting pressure. Public calls for transparency and swift justice echoed through social media channels, demanding answers and accountability. The sheriff, a seasoned official familiar with the region's challenges, worked to balance the urgency of the case with the need for thorough, methodical investigation. On the ground, search parties intensified their efforts, spurred by the video's widespread reach. The additional manpower and resources boosted morale, but the mountain's relentless weather and treacherous terrain remained formidable obstacles. Titan's tracking prowess and Jake's expertise continued to be critical as they followed leads and pieced together the puzzle. Amid the flurry of activity, Emma connected with Chloe Vance, a waitress at the cafe where the video had first been viewed live. Chloe had witnessed parts of the rescue and shared her first-hand account online, adding depth and emotion to the unfolding narrative. Together, they became inadvertent chroniclers of a community rallying around a cause greater than themselves. Yet, beneath the surface of hope and solidarity, darker currents began to stir. Those implicated in the circumstances surrounding the baby's abandonment, whether through negligence, fear, or malice, felt the pressure mounting. Threats and intimidation tactics emerged, aimed at silencing witnesses and discouraging further disclosures. The digital spotlight had exposed uncomfortable truths, and not everyone welcomed the scrutiny. Jake received confidential reports of attempts to interfere with the investigation, including warnings to key witnesses and volunteers. The tension underscored the fragile balance between justice and intimidation in a community grappling with its own shadows. Despite these challenges, the collective resolve of those committed to uncovering the truth remained steadfast. Amid the turmoil, the figure of Evelyn Thorne emerged, mayor's wife and respected community member, who had grown disillusioned with the local leadership's handling of the crisis. Quietly, she began gathering evidence of corruption and complicity tied to the case. Motivated by a desire to protect the town's future and the vulnerable lives within it, Evelyn's covert efforts intersected with Jake and the investigative teams, providing critical leads that pointed to a broader web of influence behind the abandonment. Her courage to act, risking social and political fallout, added a new dimension to the unfolding drama, a beacon of hope amid the growing darkness. As the viral video continued to circulate, inspiring empathy and action, the community of Cedar Falls found itself at a crossroads. The rescue had ignited a spark, a call for accountability, compassion, and change. Through the lens of a soldier, his dog, and a helpless infant, the story transcended borders, reminding all who watched that even in the coldest, most isolated places, humanity's warmth could prevail. Within this swirling nexus of media attention, grassroots activism, and official inquiry, Jake Turner prepared for the next phase of the mission. The viral moment had shifted the narrative, transforming a simple rescue into a movement that demanded justice and healing. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but the collective will of a community and the power of a shared story offered a beacon in the storm. And so, as snowflakes continued to fall softly over Cedar Falls, the rescue video kept playing. Each view a silent vow, each share a rallying cry, reminding the world that even the smallest voice could echo loudly when carried on the winds of courage and hope. News vans lined the snow-packed streets of Cedar Falls, their satellite dishes pointed skyward, capturing every moment of the unfolding drama. The viral video of Navy SEAL Jake Turner rescuing the newborn had ignited a firestorm of media attention, transforming the quiet mountain town into a national focal point. Television anchors delivered updates with somber tones, while social media feeds buzzed endlessly with hashtags, opinions, and heartfelt messages. Inside the hospital's neonatal unit, where the infant remained under vigilant care, the world's eyes felt both intrusive and protective. Nurses whispered about the growing media frenzy, aware that the baby's fate had become a symbol far larger than any one person or place. Jake Turner, now something of a reluctant public figure, paced the corridor outside the unit, absorbing the gravity of the moment. The video had struck a chord worldwide. People were moved by the stark contrast between the chilling wilderness and the tender rescue. The image of Titan standing guard, unwavering and vigilant, had particularly captured hearts. News outlets ran feature stories, highlighting the bond between soldier and dog and the extraordinary lengths they went to save a life. Interviews with military experts praised Jake's composure and training, while human interest pieces delved into the infant's struggle and the community's response. Meanwhile, speculation about the baby's identity and the circumstances leading to the abandonment intensified. Social media became a battleground of theories. Some speculated the infant had been deliberately left as part of a desperate escape. Others whispered of foul play. The local sheriff's department strained under the spotlight, carefully balancing public statements to avoid compromising the ongoing investigation. Jake knew the viral attention was a double-edged sword. It had galvanized public support and brought critical resources, but it also invited misinformation and unwarranted intrusion. He had fielded calls from reporters, advocacy groups, and even strangers offering help or advice. The pressure was palpable, yet his focus remained steady on the baby's welfare and the mission to uncover the truth. Community members rallied in unprecedented ways. Fundraisers sprang up to support the infant's medical care, while local churches and organizations organized blankets, clothing, and donations for families in need. Schools held assemblies to educate children about compassion and resilience, inspired by the story's reach. The mountain town, often isolated by geography, was now connected to a global audience moved by a shared sense of humanity. Within this surge of goodwill, the hospital staff worked tirelessly. The baby's condition improved incrementally, warming steadily, gaining strength, and responding to gentle care. Doctors spoke cautiously but optimistically, emphasizing the infant's resilience and the critical role of early intervention. Jake visited daily, his presence a quiet reassurance amid the flurry of medical activity. On the investigative front, authorities intensified efforts. Surveillance footage from nearby areas was reviewed, witnesses interviewed, and search grids expanded. The viral video had empowered citizens to come forward, some offering tips or information previously withheld out of fear or silence. The collective vigilance was beginning to unravel the enigma surrounding the infant's abandonment. Yet, not all responses were positive. The trio of individuals suspected of involvement, local developer Sterling Croft, Sheriff Brody Kent, and Cade Jennings, a known intimidator, found themselves under increasing scrutiny. Their attempts to downplay the incident or discredit witnesses faltered against the tide of public opinion. Rumors circulated of threats aimed at those speaking out, but the community's resolve hardened in defiance. Amidst the turmoil, a surprising ally emerged. Evelyn Thorne, wife of the town's mayor, had long harbored doubts about her husband's integrity. Motivated by a deep sense of justice, she began discreetly compiling evidence linking the corrupt officials to a conspiracy surrounding the property development that threatened local families. Her courage to step forward added momentum to the growing movement demanding accountability. Jake met with federal agents dispatched to assist in the investigation, sharing insights from his experience and the evidence gathered on the ground. The collaboration marked a turning point, signaling that the case had escalated beyond local jurisdiction. A coordinated effort began to dismantle the network of corruption entwined with the infant's abandonment. Meanwhile, the viral video continued to inspire. Across social media platforms, people shared personal stories of hardship, survival, and hope. finding in the infant's rescue a beacon of light amid darkness. Online communities formed, offering support to families facing adversity and advocating for systemic change to protect vulnerable children. In the heart of Cedar Falls, the cafe where the video had first been shared became an impromptu gathering place. Emma Lawson, the travel vlogger who had posted the footage, found herself at the center of a grassroots campaign. She organized live streams, interviews, and community events, amplifying voices calling for justice and healing. Despite the challenges, the town began to heal. Residents came together in town hall meetings, demanding transparency and reform. New leadership emerged, committed to rebuilding trust and prioritizing the welfare of all citizens. The story that started with a soldier and his dog in the snow had transformed into a catalyst for change. Yet, through it all, Jake remained focused on the infant, now a symbol of resilience and the enduring power of compassion. He visited the hospital regularly, his presence a steady comfort. Titan, ever faithful, accompanied him on walks through the nearby trails when time allowed, a reminder of the bond that had sparked the rescue. As the snow slowly melted and the days grew longer, the media frenzy began to wane, but the impact of the story endured. The viral video had ignited a movement, one that transcended borders and backgrounds. It was a testament to courage in the face of adversity, the strength of community, and the unyielding hope that even the smallest life could inspire a world to come together. In the quiet moments, Jake reflected on the journey. From the frozen mountains to the bustling hospital corridors, the digital waves that had swept the story worldwide, and the faces of those touched by the rescue. The infant's survival was not just a victory over nature, but a triumph of human spirit and connection. The story was far from over. But as the snow thawed and life began anew in the Pacific Northwest, the viral video remained, a lasting reminder that courage and compassion could shine brightest in the darkest of places. The early morning sun cast pale golden light across the snow-dusted peaks of the Pacific Northwest, painting the rugged landscape with a fragile warmth that belied the chills still lingering in the air. Within the bustling command center set up at the edge of Cedar Falls, Jake Turner stood over a sprawling map pinned with notes, photographs, and a growing web of connections. The investigation into the abandoned infant's origins had shifted into high gear. Every lead meticulously pursued, every clue scrutinized in a race against time. The remote wilderness that had offered refuge to the newborn also concealed secrets. Fragments of a story that local authorities, federal agents, and Jake himself were determined to uncover. Surveillance footage from nearby logging roads and trailheads revealed fleeting glimpses of a figure moving through the snow in the hours before the baby's discovery. Witness statements, once sparse, were now trickling in more steadily, thanks in large part to the viral video's widespread reach and the community's growing trust in the process. Jake's military training shaped his methodical approach. He worked closely with forensic teams, analyzing samples collected from the makeshift campsite, while Titan's keen senses aided ground search, parties scouring the dense forest for additional evidence. Each day brought new information, threads that, when woven together, hinted at a narrative both heartbreaking and complex. The infant had been abandoned in a desperate act, but the reasons remained elusive. Interviews with locals uncovered whispers of familial strife, economic hardship, and fear of reprisal. The community, tightly knit yet wary, began opening up, sharing stories that painted a picture of struggle hidden beneath the town's serene exterior. Jake's involvement extended beyond the physical search. He participated in debriefings with child welfare specialists, law enforcement, and social workers, ensuring that every step prioritized the infant's safety and dignity. The lines between rescuer, investigator, and advocate blurred as he immersed himself in the case, driven by a commitment to protect the vulnerable. Meanwhile, the viral video that had captured the rescue continued to resonate. It had not only brought attention, but also empowered witnesses to come forward. Anonymous tips led to the discovery of discarded items near a remote cabin, clothing, a tattered blanket matching the one wrapped around the baby, and a small weathered journal. The journal contained fragmented entries, hinting at a young mother's fear and desperation, her words a haunting echo of the infant's perilous journey. Jake pored over the journal's pages, the raw emotion and fragmented narrative revealing a story of hardship and isolation. The entries described a woman fleeing an abusive relationship, seeking refuge in the wilderness with her newborn. The harsh environment, lack of resources, and mounting fear had culminated in the heart-wrenching decision to leave the child behind, hoping rescue would come. The revelation deepened the investigation's complexity. Authorities now faced the task of locating the mother, both to ensure her safety and to reunite her with her child if possible. Jake coordinated search efforts with social services, extending outreach to shelters and support networks across the region. Back in Cedar Falls, the community's response to the unfolding story was one of cautious compassion. Local leaders organized forums to discuss support for families facing similar struggles, addressing the underlying issues that had contributed to the crisis. The viral video's impact rippled beyond the rescue, sparking conversations about social services, domestic violence, and the urgent need for accessible resources in remote areas. As the investigation progressed, Jake found moments of quiet reflection amidst the intensity. Walking the forest trails with Titan, the stillness of the wilderness contrasted sharply with the emotional turbulence of the case. The bond between man and dog remained a constant source of strength, a reminder of the resilience found in connection and trust. The search for the mother led teams to a small town several hours away, a community known for its tight-knit support systems, but also shadows of hardship. Interviews there uncovered more pieces of the puzzle. A young woman matching the journal's description had been seen leaving town weeks earlier, her circumstances precarious and fraught with fear. Jake and a specialized team moved swiftly, coordinating with local law enforcement to track her movements. The goal was clear: to find her before the harsh winter tightened its grip, to offer protection and begin the process of healing for both mother and child. Throughout the search, the infant's condition continued to improve. Medical staff reported steady progress, gaining weight, responding to care, and gradually overcoming the trauma of exposure. The baby had become a symbol of hope and resilience, inspiring those involved in the mission to persevere despite obstacles. The investigation also prompted wider reflection within Cedar Falls and beyond. The viral video, once a snapshot of a dramatic rescue, had evolved into a catalyst for change. Conversations about community support, law enforcement's role, and systemic barriers to safety grew louder, fostering a new awareness and commitment to prevention. Jake's days were filled with briefings, fieldwork, and coordination, but also moments of vulnerability. The weight of the infant's story, and the many like it, pressed upon him. Yet, amidst the challenges, there was a steadfast belief that every life mattered, every effort counted. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the snow-covered forest, Jake prepared to brief the team on the latest developments. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but the pursuit of truth, justice, and reunification drove them forward. The wilderness held its secrets tightly, but with each passing day, the veil lifted a little more. The infant's survival was a beacon, illuminating the darkness of fear and isolation. And as Jake and Titan stood poised to continue the search, the mission remained clear: to bring light to the hidden corners, to heal fractured lives, and to ensure that no child would be left alone in the snow again. The sterile white walls of the pediatric unit were softened by the gentle hum of monitors and the quiet footsteps of nurses moving with practiced care. Within a small, warmly lit room, the infant nestled peacefully in a crib, swaddled in soft blankets that contrasted sharply with the cold wilderness from which the child had emerged. The journey from frozen forest to this place of healing had been fraught with uncertainty. Yet now, hope radiated in every gentle breath and fluttering eyelash. Jake Turner stood by the window, hands tucked into his jacket pockets, gazing out at the snow-blanketed landscape beyond the hospital grounds. The mountains loomed serene and distant, their harshness softened by the morning light. Titan rested quietly at Jake's feet, the dog's steady presence a balm amid the tension and emotion that had followed the rescue. The infant's fragile frame had grown stronger with each passing day. Medical staff noted improvements in weight, responsiveness, and warmth, signs that the body was mending from the trauma endured. Yet, it was the emotional bond forming between Jake and the child that spoke volumes. He had become more than rescuer, a guardian, a protector, a steady presence in a world that had been suddenly uncertain. Outside the hospital, the community of Cedar Falls had rallied around the infant and the mission to provide care and support. Donations of clothing, blankets, and toys arrived daily, each item a symbol of collective compassion. Local families volunteered time and resources, weaving a network of kindness that stretched beyond the hospital walls. Jake often found himself reflecting on the resilience embodied by the tiny life before him. The infant's survival was not just a testament to medical science or military precision, but to the indomitable spirit that refused to yield. It was a reminder of the fragile beauty of life and the profound responsibility to nurture it. Meanwhile, Titan's keen senses remained attuned to the world outside. The dog's role extended beyond the wilderness, offering comfort and companionship to Jake during long hospital stays and quiet moments. Their bond, forged in the cold forests, now served as a source of strength amid the uncertainty. The investigation into the infant's origins continued in parallel. Authorities had located the mother, a young woman whose story unfolded with a mixture of pain, regret, and hope. Reunification efforts were underway, with social workers facilitating careful meetings designed to protect both mother and child. The process was delicate, fraught with emotional complexity, yet underscored by a shared desire for healing. Within the hospital, scenes of quiet tenderness unfolded. Nurses spoke softly as they tended to the infant, while Jake maintained a vigilant watch. The baby's gaze, though fleeting, seemed to recognize a steady presence, a beacon of safety in an unfamiliar world. Community outreach programs blossomed in the wake of the rescue. Educational workshops addressed issues of domestic violence, mental health, and support for vulnerable families. The story that began with a soldier and his dog had grown into a movement, one focused on prevention, awareness, and the power of collective action. Emma Lawson, the travel vlogger whose footage had brought the rescue to the world's attention, continued her role as a storyteller and advocate. She documented the infant's progress and the community's response, her platform amplifying voices that might otherwise go unheard. Through her lens, hope was broadcast far beyond the mountain town, inspiring others to act. Jake's relationship with the infant deepened with each passing day. He found solace in the simple routines, feeding, soothing, and watching for signs of growth. The child's small, fingers curling around his own, were a silent promise, a connection that transcended words. Yet, beneath the surface of healing, challenges remained. The trauma endured by both mother and child required ongoing support, counseling, and care. The path to recovery was neither straight nor easy, but it was marked by resilience and the unwavering commitment of those who stood beside them. Titan, ever vigilant, sensed the emotional currents swirling around the hospital room. The dog's calm presence offered comfort not only to Jake, but to the medical staff and volunteers who had become part of this extended family. In the quiet moments, Titan's steady breathing and gentle nuzzles reminded all that healing was as much about connection as it was about medicine. The mountain town of Cedar Falls embraced the infant as one of its own, a symbol of hope born from adversity. Town meetings focused on strengthening community resources and addressing the root causes that had led to the child's abandonment. The viral video that had captured the rescue had evolved into a catalyst for lasting change. As winter slowly gave way to the first hints of spring, the hospital room was filled with light and the soft sounds of new life. Jake watched the infant sleep, the steady rise and fall of tiny breaths, a melody of survival and promise. The journey from the frozen wilderness to this place of warmth and care was a testament to courage, compassion, and the enduring power of human connection. Outside, Titan shifted on the floor, eyes meeting Jake's with a shared understanding. Their mission had evolved, from rescue to guardianship, from survival to hope. And as the snow melted beyond the window, so too did the shadows of fear and uncertainty, replaced by the bright possibilities of healing and new beginnings. In this quiet sanctuary, the infant's story continued, woven with threads of resilience, community, and the unwavering spirit of those who refused to let life be lost to the cold. The journey was far from complete, but in the steady hands and watchful eyes surrounding the child, there was a promise that no one would walk that path alone. The morning sun filtered softly through the hospital window, casting a warm glow over the quiet room where the infant lay, nestled in a small bed, wrapped tightly in blankets that seemed to cocoon the fragile life within. The steady beep of the monitors marked the rhythm of recovery, a heartbeat steadying after the chaos of abandonment and rescue. Outside, the world stirred with cautious hope, but inside, a reunion was about to bring a profound sense of closure. Jake Turner stood by the bedside, his gaze steady and watchful, the weight of the journey etched in the lines of his face. Titan rested calmly at his side, a silent guardian whose presence had become a constant through the unfolding drama. The infant's tiny hand twitched, fingers curling in reflex as a cautious knock sounded at the door. The nurse opened it gently, ushering in a woman wrapped in a heavy coat, her eyes rimmed with weariness and hope. The woman's steps were tentative but purposeful as she approached the bedside. The infant stirred, sensing the approach, a faint flicker of recognition stirring in their delicate features. The room seemed to hold its breath as mother and child met once more. Tears welled in the woman's eyes, a mixture of relief, sorrow, and overwhelming love. She reached out slowly, her hands trembling as they hovered over the infant before cradling the small body against her chest. The fragile life she had once feared lost was now tangible, warm, and breathing. Jake watched quietly, a steady presence amid the emotional reunion. The mother's whispered words were soft yet laden with promise, vows to protect, nurture, and never again let fear dictate their fate. The infant, too small to understand fully, responded with the simplest of gestures, a tight grip, a soft coo that spoke volumes. Outside the hospital walls, the community of Cedar Falls shared in the moment's significance. News of the reunion spread quickly, carried by the very networks that had amplified the story from the beginning. The infant's survival and return to family symbolized more than personal redemption. It was a testament to resilience, compassion, and the power of collective action. Jake's role shifted subtly but profoundly. From rescuer to witness, advocate to protector, he now stood alongside social workers and medical staff in supporting the fragile new bond. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges that would require patience, understanding, and unwavering dedication. The mother's story unfolded gradually, revealing the layers of hardship and fear that had led to the abandonment. Interviews and counseling sessions painted a portrait of a woman grappling with domestic violence, isolation, and desperation. Circumstances that had driven her into the wilderness with her newborn, seeking safety but finding peril instead. Community resources mobilized to support the family's healing. Mental health professionals, social workers, and advocates collaborated to create a network of care that aimed to break cycles of trauma and provide stability. Educational programs sprang up, emphasizing awareness and prevention, ensuring that the infant's story would inspire lasting change. Jake remained a steadfast figure throughout, his military discipline tempered by a growing empathy born of experience. He attended meetings, offered support, and maintained his role as a bridge between the past and the future. Titan, ever faithful, accompanied him, their bond a symbol of loyalty and resilience. The investigation into the broader circumstances surrounding the infant's abandonment continued in parallel. Authorities pursued leads that shed light on local issues of neglect, abuse, and systemic failures. The viral video that had sparked global attention now fueled efforts to address root causes and prevent future tragedies. As the infant grew stronger, the hospital prepared for discharge, and plans were made for a safe, nurturing home environment. The mother's commitment to rehabilitation and healing was clear, supported by a community determined to uplift rather than judge. In the quiet moments before leaving the hospital, Jake knelt beside the crib, gently brushing a stray lock of hair from the infant's forehead. The child's eyes fluttered open, meeting his gaze with a purity that transcended circumstance. It was a look filled with trust and the promise of new beginnings. Outside, the snow had begun to melt, revealing the resilient earth beneath, a landscape transformed by the seasons, much like the lives intertwined in this story. Cedar Falls stood united, its people forever changed by the courage, compassion, and hope that had emerged from the cold wilderness. As Jake and Titan stepped outside into the crisp air, the weight of the journey lingered but was tempered by the knowledge that this chapter, though challenging, had reached a turning point. The infant's reunion was not an end, but a beginning, a step toward healing, redemption, and the enduring strength found in connection. The mountain peaks stood silent witness to the story's unfolding, their shadows long but ever receding with the dawn. And for the infant cradled in loving arms, the future stretched wide, bright with possibility and guarded by those who understood that every life, no matter how small or vulnerable, deserved a chance to flourish. The snow had melted into a gentle spring rain, washing over the rugged terrain of the Pacific Northwest and transforming the stark winter landscape into one of renewal and quiet resilience. Jake Turner stood on the porch of a modest lakeside cabin, the same refuge where the infant's mother had found shelter after the harrowing ordeal. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth, a stark contrast to the biting cold that had once threatened a fragile life. Beside him, Titan sat alert, tail wagging softly in the cool breeze, his keen eyes scanning the horizon as if sensing the weight of the journey now behind them. the bond between man and dog had deepened through trials few could imagine. Their partnership, a testament to trust, loyalty, and unwavering dedication. Inside the cabin, the infant, now a thriving toddler, played quietly with a plush toy, laughter spilling through the open windows and mingling with the rhythmic tapping of rain. The transformation from a shivering newborn, abandoned in the snow, to a child surrounded by love and care was nothing short of miraculous. The scars of the past lingered faintly, but were softened by the warmth of human connection and the promise of a new beginning. Jake watched as the mother cradled her child, eyes reflecting a mixture of exhaustion and hope. Their journey had been arduous, marked by fear, loss, and uncertainty. But it was also a story of resilience and redemption. The mother's commitment to healing and rebuilding had been unwavering, supported by a community determined to offer second chances. The town of Cedar Falls had changed as well. The viral rescue video had sparked a movement that transcended borders and backgrounds, inspiring reforms and a renewed focus on protecting vulnerable lives. New leadership emerged, dedicated to transparency, integrity, and the welfare of all residents. The shadows of corruption and neglect that once loomed over the community were steadily dispelled by the collective will of its people. Jake's role had evolved from rescuer to advocate and guardian, embodying the spirit of service that defined his years as a Navy SEAL. He had forged alliances with local authorities, social workers, and volunteers, creating a network of support that extended beyond the immediate crisis. His lake house, once a place of solitude, had become a symbol of resilience and hope. A sanctuary where healing could take root. The investigation into the circumstances surrounding the infant's abandonment had led to accountability. Key figures involved in intimidation and neglect faced justice, their influence diminished by the courage of those who refused to remain silent. The community's resolve had turned the tide, proving that even the most entrenched corruption could be challenged by unity and determination. Emma Lawson's travel vlogging had blossomed into a platform for advocacy, her viral footage a catalyst for change that reached audiences worldwide. Through her eyes, the story of a soldier, his dog, and a newborn in the snow had become a beacon of courage and compassion, a reminder that individual actions could ripple into profound impact. As Jake stood on the porch, the rain beginning to ease, a gentle warmth spread through the air. The hardships of the past had not been forgotten, but they no longer defined the present. Instead, they fueled a commitment to protect, to nurture, and to stand firm against injustice. Titan shifted beside him, eyes meeting Jake's with a quiet understanding. Their partnership had been forged in adversity and tempered by hope, a bond that would endure whatever challenges lay ahead. The toddler's laughter echoed from inside, a sound that embodied the triumph of life over hardship. Jake smiled, feeling the weight of his mission settle into a quiet pride. The journey was far from over, but the path was clear. In the heart of the Pacific Northwest, beneath skies that promised renewal, a community healed and grew stronger. The story that had begun with a frozen infant in the snow had blossomed into a testament of courage, redemption, and the enduring power of human connection. And as the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light over the lake's shimmering surface, Jake Turner, Titan, and the child they had fought to save stood together, symbols of hope and resilience in a world that had learned the value of standing firm against injustice. The narrative closed not with an end, but with a call to action, to share this story of bravery and compassion, to inspire others to protect the vulnerable, and to remind all that, even in the darkest moments, Good ultimately triumphs over greed.